Take two. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all are well today. My name is Monty Sylvan. I am the coordinator for the membership department here at AdvaMed. Today we have a wonderful presentation aligned with for you today with Alexander Group entitled Provider Insight Series, MedTech Product Innovation Impacting GTM Models. Today I would like you all to be mindful of any questions that you have. Please ask in the Q&A section just for organizational purposes. And today we have Mike White, principal at Alexander Group, and he will be our speaker as well as Taylor Mullen. Mike, take it away.
All right, thanks, Monty. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for joining. As Monty mentioned, I'm Mike White. I'm a principal with AGI, and I co-lead our MedTech practice. So I've had the opportunity to work, been with AGI for about 10 years, and have had the opportunity to work with a number of companies across the medical device and diagnostic space. I'm joined by my colleague, Taylor Mullen, and Taylor leads all of our research and analytics within healthcare. So he had a pretty significant hand in the research that we're going to share with you today. What we hope to, a quick background at AGI before we get started. So the Alexander Group, we are a revenue growth management consulting firm. What that means is we work with marketing, sales, and service organizations within the companies that we work with. We've been around for about 40 years and have worked across a majority of the key players within the MedTech and broader space. We focus on projects that help companies accelerate profitable revenue growth, quite simply. And those are growth projects or execution projects within the marketing, sales, or service functions, and have had a long experience within the MedTech space. The primary focus of today's session is to really get into our latest research, later provider research briefing focused on product innovation. We run research on a regular basis to help stay current on trends and have share interactions or share insights with leaders like yourself. And this focus the focus of this study was taken by hospital executives and physicians. Hospital executives include titles such as Chief Medical Officer, COO, administrator, and then physicians across 4 core specialties of cardiology, orthopedics, primary care, and radiology. What we asked about was their expectations in current utilization of product innovation related to AI, robotics, and other innovation, as well as projections going forward. In addition to that, we asked for market update information, so understanding how what their priorities are for 2024 and 2025. What are the core challenges? What sort of price increases are they accepting? So we'll cover both of those topics, the market update information that we think will be valuable to you all, as well as get into the details of product innovation and how it is shaping go-to-market models for MedTech companies. The executive summary is here, and the first couple focus on market update stats or data, and then the remainder get into product innovation. So from a market update or from hospital priority standpoint, improving patient outcomes remains the number one priority, of course. There's no surprise there. But what's interesting is the next set of responses down from that all fall into the category of retaining quality personnel or reducing cost. Staffing shortages and supply chain issues and lack of patient demand are issues that have subsided to some extent, while they still remain the primary focus is on reducing cost and retaining personnel. On the positive side, we've seen an increase in capital budgets in 2024. So capital budgets is one financial metric we consider to have a sense of what the health of the healthcare system is like in the U.S. There's a number of other data sources out there that we see that demonstrate or show how operating margins have increased in 2024, as well as just net patient revenue, whether it's inpatient or outpatient. We collect information here specific to capital budgets, and we saw a significant increase in 2024 compared to when we asked the same question about a year ago. As we flip into product innovation, so product innovation is still in the early stages. Product innovation in the sense of robotics, AI, and connected products. It's certainly been plenty of product innovation in MedTech for many years, but the new wave of product innovation falls into robotics, whether we're talking about soft tissue or hard tissue orthopedic robotics, AI and connected products. And the results or the input from providers is it's still a bit too early to tell how much these innovations are improving patient outcomes or improving or increasing hospital efficiencies. And we have some data to support that we'll get into. AI and robotic utilization are expected to increase by 50% over the next 5 years, according to what providers had responded to this survey. Buyer influencers continue to expand. So we certainly know that buyer influencers, meaning procurement, idea, influencers outside of the physician, have continued to proliferate over the last 10 or 15 years as we introduce new products or new technologies. That expansion of influencers only increases. And then shifting support needs. So we know that within the technology advancements that we're discussing or reviewing in detail today, providers are asking more from MedTech companies on education, in-person training, in-person case support, on-demand customer service, and a number of other areas. So those issues or those key kind of points or takeaways, they all tie into how MedTech companies are shaping their go-to-market models, and we'll get into both those topics here momentarily. All right, so starting with the investment priorities, improving patient outcomes is listed as number one, as I mentioned. I think what's more interesting is I'd be really curious to know the 26% who didn't say improving patient outcomes was a top priority. But all kidding aside, it's interesting to see that the improving costs and reducing costs and improving procedural efficiencies are the next tranche down. We have seen patient volumes or increasing patient volumes as a priority subside. This was a higher priority when we asked the question a year ago. So good to see that that's not a concern right now for hospitals, at least as it relates to their financial situations. Staffing shortages remain a challenge, and they're the top challenge that's listed here. But as we've done a little bit of, or as we asked this question approximately a year ago, they've subsided a bit as we did interviews with a number of different providers throughout this process as well. A radiologist, told us about how the staffing shortages, at least in their perspective, have subsided some. They'll remain, whether it's nursing or other specialty. The staffing shortages will remain for the foreseeable future, but they're not as significant as they were 2 or 3 years ago. And then another positive sign is that supply issues have subsided, at least to some extent. Physicians suggest they're still a bit of an issue, but hospital executives, as you can see by this page, only 34% said that they're a core challenge for 2024. This page gets into the details on capital budget increases. So we asked how many the providers to describe how they are changing their capital budget in 2024 compared to 2023, and 74% said they're increasing it. That itself isn't all that, I think, surprising necessarily, but when you compare it to last year, only 37% said they were increasing their capital budget. So 2x the number of participants suggested that they're increasing capital budgets in 2024 compared to how they responded a year ago. We also asked for information about price increases and their willingness to accept them, given the inflation pressures we've had over the past couple of years. certainly understand that price increases are getting passed through to providers. Providers are suggesting that they've accepted on average 6%. Now, this is across third-party vendors, so it will vary pretty significantly depending on the type of product we're talking about. But I think seeing a 6% increase in 2024 is pretty significant because it was around 6 to 7% last year as well. So they're in aggregate accepting about 6% or about 60% of what's being requested. And then how are they getting reimbursed or adjusted from a reimbursement standpoint with payers? Their average target reimbursement is 21%, so it's a pretty big jump. But as you can see on the right-hand side here, it varies pretty significantly, going from 5%, the 25th percentile is at 5%, all the way up to 30% targeted reimbursement increase. And of course, again, it's very procedure dependent. But a 21% increase on average being requested is pretty substantial, and the likelihood of that being of the providers achieving that is fairly significant. So 51% say it's neutral, 23% say it's likely, and then 3% say very likely. So there's not too many who have low confidence that they'll receive that sort of reimbursement increase. That concludes the market update component, and we'll spend the remainder of the time to talk through the product innovation and impact on go-to-market models. So as I said, we focus our research or our product innovation categories in 3 specific areas. And in recognizing there are many other areas of innovation within MedTech that don't fall into these 3 categories, but these are 3 newer categories of product innovation we've seen in MedTech over the last 5 or 10 years. First is surgical robotics. So separated between soft tissue robotic platforms as well as hard tissue or orthopedic robotic platforms. As you all know, and some of you work for the companies listed on this page, the orthopedic space is much further along in maturity in terms of the number of players. Smith & Nephew and Zimmer and Stryker and others. Many others have core robotic platforms, where the soft tissue side has been a bit more challenging. Intuitive has certainly led the way in that regard over a number of years, and has been a very successful company in large part because of the Da Vinci platforms and other robotic products. But the complexities associated with soft tissue type procedures are, in our opinion, hindering the advancements we're seeing in some of the others, Medtronic's Hugo and a few others that are yet to fully kind of hit the market in all geographies. But we'll continue to see advancements there. AI is really broken down into, or a large part of AI is tied into radiology. So the FDA put out some stats towards the end of last year where they said approximately 150, they approved approximately 150 medical devices that were backed by AI. And over 90% of them were in radiology. A few others were in cardiovascular, neurology, and a couple other specialties. But in large part, we're seeing AI advancements focused in radiology, so some sort of imaging type platform. Endoscopic AI is, Medtronic has a GI Genius platform that's been very successful at increasing the detection of polyps. There's AI and remote patient monitoring, and then AI driven fast imaging. So Philips Smart Speed is referenced here, and others where there are some component of AI that helps with the image platform or quality. So we spoke with the radiologist through this process and asking about the AI platforms that they use, and they described an MRI machine scanner that utilizes has AI that supports denoising. And so what it does for them is it speeds up the process, and it reduces the amount of time that the radiologist or the techs have to spend reviewing the image, and provides better clarity. So we're not to the point where we're seeing a significant amount of AI-driven procedures. It's more in the range of AI, supported imaging type products to help with clarity, detection, or other factors. And then the third category is connected products. So this, I would say the majority of MedTech companies at this point have launched some sort of a connected device or connected product in the past 10 years. We reference here Medtronic's VitalSync platform that is a remote patient monitoring platform. So taking pulse oximetry sensors and SpO2 readings and capnography readings and putting it in a centralized place for providers, clinicians, nurses can review a number of different patients at the same time. We point out for lab optimization, Abbott's Inland IQ platform is one where you're provided inventory management or clinical decision support type innovation or additional support, in addition to the core lab instrumentation and kind of the core boxes or capital equipment. So the idea of connected products is any sort of software component that's been adapted or added onto the traditional hardware, whether that's pulse ox sensors or diagnostic equipment. All right, and then Taylor, do you want to take the lead on a couple of these slides here in terms of what we're seeing from an investment standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of the survey, we asked about investment levels, specifically across the following product categories. So what you guys are seeing on the left-hand side and what's being highlighted in the chart is the moderate to significant levels of investment that providers say they're putting into those product categories. So at the top, you see imaging. Below that, you see telehealth remains a leading category. I think it's indicative of the continuing need of some of the components for telehealth throughout the pandemic. There probably was not enough investment in infrastructure to put that in place, and it still remains, a high investment area. But looking down, you see AI towards the bottom. While it's still relatively in its early stages, I would still consider this a pretty significant level of investment for both hospital operations and procedures. Even thinking through this, we spoke to some smaller hospital networks, and the reason being that it may be lower on that end is that these smaller hospital networks are essentially waiting for the bigger hospital networks to invest in AI, and they want to see and identify what is working well for them and what products they can take and figure out will work well within their own network. On the right-hand side, we also asked about the impact to deliver care over the next 3 to 5 years, with AI being the leading category for that. And 98% of the physicians that we had surveyed believe that AI and robotics will both have some sort of ability or impact on ability to deliver care in the future. Another important thing to note as well is this is a question that we've asked year over year. Compared to last year, investments in surgical robotics are up 23 percentage points, as well as investments in AI are up 16 percentage points.
Yeah, so this is certainly the expectation is this is going to continue, right? On the right-hand side, thinking about AI, but it's in pockets right now. As Taylor mentioned, one of the hospital executives we spoke with wasn't sure how to utilize AI and why we would invest, in AI in any sort of real capacity yet. They also mentioned, the constraints and budgets, which kind of get back to one of the earlier points on market update. While we definitely see an increase in budgets and financial health in the U.S. healthcare system, we know that that's not unilateral truth. So this one that hospital executive we're speaking with said that there's restrictions on capital budgets, and therefore things like product innovation on AI or other areas is maybe falls a little bit behind some of the other priorities they have. So that will continue to be what we'll continue to see. That will happen in pockets. I think in aggregate to see AI for procedures is only at 33%, but I think you should keep that in perspective that we still see, first of all, that's 33% of respondents that say there's moderate or significant investment. And then, if we were to ask that specific question a year or two ago, obviously the number would have been significantly lower than 33%. So I think that those are a couple of the interesting points on this page. as well as the idea that everybody, 98% of physicians and hospital executives believe it'll have an ability to impact care in the future. And we're just still, in the early stages, but it's an exciting time to see how much this will take off and how many products and procedures that this will help shape and improve.
Yeah, so another piece we were interested to hear from physicians was how product innovation is changing their practicing behaviors today. So what you're seeing across the board for both robotics, AI, and connected products, less than 50% of respondents essentially said that these product innovations are increasing, procedural or operational efficiency, as well as patient outcomes. And we thought that was relatively low. And speaking with, orthopedics, one of the people we interviewed was an orthopedic surgeon, and we kind of showed him some of these numbers, expecting to see his opinion on some of this. He pointed to the robotics piece, and he basically said that it was a little bit too early to tell. Right now, robotics is still relatively new. There's still a lot to learn about it. Some of these procedures, there's a lot of setup time that may take longer than it would without the use of robotics. But I think the real benefit from robotics, and through his opinion too as well, is that we'll see this change evolve, 10, 15 years down the line. So, the minimally invasive surgeries or seating the implants more correctly, basically reducing the amount of repeat visits. It's still a little bit too early to tell in these days. And we're thinking that the ideal or logic around, robotics trickles down to AI as well as connected products.
Yeah, and I think that on the robotics piece, so agree. I think that we're all, looking for immediate results, right? And hey, there's a pretty amazing advancements in the way that surgeries are being performed, and want to see that we're seeing the significant difference in outcomes. This was surprising to me to see it was only at 26% said that it's improving patient outcomes, but I think the reasons are what Taylor alluded to. That it's, we're going to see it, it takes more of a 10 to 15 year period to really understand the patient benefit there. On AI and machine learning, also even earlier stages, right, in terms of the AI products being adapted to medical devices that are, medical devices or other products, imaging products that are utilized within or supporting procedures. Is it really improving patient outcomes at this point? It's not a resounding yes. And we asked the radiologist about the different components that they're using and how much impact it has on their on patient outcomes. And his response was it was less about improving patient outcomes, at least in the MRI scanner that's utilizing denoising, but more about driving some sort of efficiencies. And you see a little bit of a difference between operational efficiency and improving patient outcomes. I do think that you'll have, as we see more products that utilize AI for detection of a condition, such as the endoscope I referenced earlier, we'll see more and more of those, the improving patient outcomes category increase. And what we have seen in terms of investment and current and planned investment in AI right now is, I would imagine, we'll see that number, the 30% number, increase pretty significantly over the next 3 to 5 years. I wanted to get back, there were a couple questions, and I wanted to get back to, I think on the prior page, one question from Haley was, what do these percentages of investment mean in terms of US dollars? How do they translate to dollars? It's a really good question, and there's not a direct translation. I think that the way that we're thinking about it is because there are shifting budgets, right? So they might be investing in imaging, but they might, the same hospital might not be doing any sort of, capital infrastructure projects, or, there's definitely net changes to kind of the net outcome, of course. But I think the way to think about this is that anything when you have a moderate or significant investment area, there's more in aggregate, right? This is across all participants, that there is incremental dollars. It's hard to put the actual dollar figure against it, but there are incremental dollars going into imaging in the U.S. currently. So I think that's the, kind of the broad answer, but without having more detail on the specific dollars. And then the other question from Jed was, how is AI being integrated into solutions comprising the patient engagement category? It's really thinking about patient engagement, data mining is data mining solutions or AI type capabilities that are leveraging to providing more insight into all the data that we're collecting from on a patient engagement standpoint. There are going to be limitations that we can do, right, from a data privacy, and that's one of the things that's going to continue to slow AI to some extent is the confidential nature of so much of the data that we collect in the U.S. healthcare system. But that said, I think that this slide is kind of indicating that there is still an ability for AI to be integrated into patient engagement to some degree. So thank you for the questions, and please feel free to add in more as we go. All right, so we also asked about, we asked providers' perspective on, what they think robotics and on the next page, AI will be utilized within procedures in 5 years. So, certainly we all have, we as consultants have a perspective, and MedTech companies who are investing in the products have a perspective, but I think it's interesting to get the hospital executive and physician perspective on how much robotics will, increase in the coming years. And the takeaway is you add all these up, it's going to increase about 50% is what they're suggesting. The category that you see here that's highlighted is the range of 26 to 75%. So of procedures. So you can take a step back just to be clear on the data here. We asked them to categorize what percentage of their procedures utilize surgical robotics today, and then what do you project in 5 years? So the gray is today, and then the blue is in 5 years. The biggest shift and increase is the category that I mentioned, saying that somewhere between 26 and 75% of our procedures will utilize robotics in 5 years. Now, it's not greater than 75. I think there's some reality here on the different applications and indications that robotics will be available for. So as we see more advancements in shoulders and other common core procedures, we'll see this number increase. But we're not going to get to the point where it's anytime in the near future where it's all procedures, all surgical procedures are utilizing robotics. The same question was asked about AI, and the interesting takeaway here is that 60% of participants today say they use AI for very few procedures, less than 10%. Whereas in 5 years, only 16%, 1/6, say that they're going to utilize AI in only a few procedures. So there's a pretty significant shift, and the expectation is, while we talked about maybe some of the mixed results, or it's too early to tell on how much AI and robotics are improving patient outcomes, I think that this chart here and the data behind it is indicative of how much confidence providers have in these products that will continue to be invested in and transform the way that we're thinking about operating or running procedures. We also asked for input on the influencers. So we know that the decision influencers or the decision makers within a hospital vary pretty significantly depending on the product that we're talking about, and have increased or has expanded out beyond the physician over the last 5, 10, 15 years pretty significantly. We wanted to get their perspective on these technology advancements and who was making the decision there. So we start with surgical robotics. Through the data collected here, it basically says that 52% in 52% of the cases, the physician is the final decision maker, according to hospital executives and physicians. If we cut the data and we just look at what the physician responses are, that number goes up. The physicians certainly have a perspective that they have a bit more say than what we do when you combine the data with physicians and hospital executives. But this is the aggregate average data. The takeaway, or one of the takeaways here, is that in the robotics category, physicians carry pretty substantial influence. And when we asked one of the orthopedic surgeons that we interviewed, who utilized Stryker's Mako platform exclusively, and we asked about their perspective on what would cause you to change, and it was his response was it would take a lot, effectively, and that there's a pretty strong loyalty because of the additional, not only because of the platform and the technology and how advanced and effective it is, but the support that he receives from that team is, over the years would cause him, it would be a pretty significant shift to move to a different platform. And he was indicating in that case that he was really the primary decision maker for that facility. That'll vary if you go.
One piece about that I want to pull up too is that he mentioned that the Stryker reps were there 100% of the time. So whenever they need them, they're on site. I think that was a key point, saying that if that falls off over time, that's when they'd start thinking about switching.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think that, those in the orthopedic space recognize that that's an expectation. I think that the point there, though, is that it's, within robotic platforms, there's an increased expectation, right? And many companies have deployed, robotic specific robotic teams, but there's an elevated expectation of support that's needed. And in this case was one that he was receiving really good support, which caused him to, certainly to maintain where they're currently at. You can see here, so that's a situation in, so for surgical robots where you have vast majority suggesting the physician's the key decision maker. On connected products over on the right-hand side, that's much more spread between, the 4 different categories of stakeholders we included here. And the connected products could be a number of different things. We mentioned remote patient monitoring, we mentioned lab optimization, so that certainly very shifts, but there's not as strong of a physician influence on the connected products as you have for surgical robots. So what does this all mean to your go-to-market models? Well, first, of course, you have to identify what this chart looks like for your specific set of products. And we work with companies a lot who will even do sales rep surveys and ask them for their set of products, more or less this question: who is the primary decision maker across a number of different categories? And the response varies. So we get, even within, one organization, and asking the sales team about who the primary and secondary decision maker is, there's a significant variance, which I think is reflective of how much more complicated the buying process has become within the healthcare system, for good reason. But that means that as a MedTech company, you need to make sure that you understand the nuances between not only who the influencers are and who the primary kind of secondary influencers are, but how their needs and priorities shift, and then what are the ideal customer profiles that you set up in the messages, and how you provide differentiated messaging to those different stakeholders within the same facility. So MedTech companies who have done this right or lead in this area will have differentiated ideal customer profiles, differentiated clinical and economic messaging, depending on the specific stakeholder we're talking about. They'll have their roles deployed accordingly. So is the sales rep capable of having the more in-depth technical or clinical conversation, or do we need more support from field marketing or sales engineers on the tech side within the in the Connect products? But those who do this really well have that really fine, have that part of it fine-tuned, where we're starting with identifying who the differentiators are, the decision makers are, and how their needs vary, and then getting to differentiated ideal customer profiles, messaging, and then roles that can kind of deliver those messages and maintain the relationships. This is just, you all know that we're past just relationships in MedTech still matter significantly, but we're past the sole, physician to rep relationship driving everything. The approach from a go-to-market standpoint is much more nuanced now than it was 5 or 10 years ago. All right, we also asked them to provide information on the support needed tied into the products. And it came down to 3 different categories. So more education and training needed, more on-demand customer service, and then more clinical expertise required. Across all of these, there's an elevated level of expectation for these products. So you have to think about how you're deploying your teams as a med tech company, how you're deploying your specialist teams, and how much can the rep or the clinical specialist manage versus how much you need specialist type teams to support this. How much you need more, more customer success roles, or roles that aren't traditional in the med tech space, but come from other industries such as technology and SaaS and other spaces. But it's getting the combination of first starting with how much the core sales rep can do or should be able to do and what their skill set is and capabilities are, then moving into what sort of specialist or new roles are needed, from clinical specialists to product specific overlay specialists to field marketing or even roles like customer success. I've alluded to some of this throughout the session, but want to wrap up, really what this all means for your go-to-market models as a med tech company. First, and this is tied into AI and robotics and connected products, the product innovation categories we're discussing today, but it also applies to really any sort of new product type launch, right? And in those, there's many in the pulse field ablation space with new or recently launched products, and many others that really this kind of applies to as well. First is getting the go-to-market product launch execution plan in place. So it's too many companies fall in the trap of getting products through 510(k) clearance, getting the having differentiated clinical data through trials and otherwise that support how beneficial the product is to patients and providers, and then stand back and expect that the product is going to that we're going to see the results come in as without any additional effort or focus. What leading companies do in this space is have a clear go-to-market product launch execution plan that starts with specific account facility and physician targeting, understanding tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 type physicians who we should be prioritizing for the new product. Moving on to differentiated clinical messaging, understanding the role responsibilities, meaning your sales, clinical, or marketing roles, who's doing what to execute, and then putting sales incentive plans that reinforce it. But it's really important to have, in order to see the return, the kind of the R and the ROI equation meet what you're expecting from an investment profile. Having a in-depth go-to-market product launch plan is a critical step. The second point is buyer segmentation. So buyer segmentation beyond just the facility, which certainly matters, site of care, size of facility, and a number of other factors. But what we see leading companies do is have a clear buyer level segmentation. So take an orthopedic surgeon or another surgeon or physician, understanding their total case volume, understanding their number of cases we do with them, to put them in a category of, are they our kind of high volume user? Are they do they differentiate between providers? Are they low volume, but they are kind of dedicated to us? But laying that out into different 4 or 5 or 6 different segments at the physician level, and then mapping that to or rolling that out to the sales organization so that in running specific sales plays that are differentiated by those segments to know where they should be spending their time when they're going forward with these new products based on who has the highest propensity to adopt the new product. Elevated clinical support is the third one. So what we're seeing is teams putting in place more advanced clinical teams for robotics or AI. We're seeing customer success, I mentioned a minute ago, be rolled out, especially in any sort of recurring revenue software base, think about digital health type category. Customer success roles are becoming more and more common in those specific areas and have been very successful in the SaaS or the tech world for many years now. Our expectation is we'll continue to see an increase in customer success roles and teams being deployed in MedTech, especially in areas where there's an ongoing recurring revenue stream associated. The fourth component here is sales rep buy-in. So we can't forget about the fact that, even though it's I think, another trap that MedTech companies fall into is that we have this great new product that we've invested, significant amount of money in and as an organization, and we have really good clinical results. We just take it for granted that reps are going to, fall in love with it too and want to drive it and sell it with their physician or clinician counterparts. Many cases, and robotics is an example of one where, it does take focused sales rep buy-in to drive the results. So they've been, supporting orthopedic surgeons for many years without a robotic assisted platform. And maybe physicians are a bit hesitant and the reps are very used to how they've been doing, knee or hip replacements without any sort of robotic assisted platform and don't see the need. And so therefore, maybe the product doesn't kind of get off the ground. That idea plays out in many of these new products. So what do you do about it? Well, I think what leading companies do is they don't just sit back and assume that the rep is going to, kind of adopt the product and drive it. And it's beyond just sales incentives. Sales incentives are one thing that will help, but it's more than that. It's getting down to the buyer segmentation, enabling them with buyer segmentation where they go, all right, here's tier 1 and tier 2 type customers who are most likely to buy the new product or adopt the new product, arming them with the value propositions and clinically differentiated messaging, and then supporting it with sales incentive plans. But it's not just sitting back and assuming that the reps are going to drive it, adopt and drive the new product, or just putting sales incentive plans in place. It's broader than that. And then the last piece is physician education. So we are asking in many cases here, particularly with robotics and AI, we're asking physicians to operate differently or perform procedures differently or work differently than what they were trained in medical school. And there's a pretty big hurdle you have to get over to train, and educate a group of, physicians who are very intelligent individuals and have been trained for many years in medical school and in the way they operate to completely shift that approach. So MedTech companies, in order to kind of make the most out of their product innovation investment and get the products into where they know where the products will have a positive impact on patients and patient outcomes. What they do, the leading companies do, is they put together a clear and cohesive KOL strategy. They put together education programs and they deploy roles like field marketing roles and others that's not just focused on our expectation of just being the sales team that sells it. There are field-based marketing roles that help support and educate physician. But that's really kind of the fifth priority around go-to-market priorities that drive better results or faster results within the product innovation and fall within these 5 categories. All right, that really concludes the research that we plan to share today. As we, there's a few different ways you can engage with the Alexander Group. We do regular research, industry research, similar to what you saw today. That's complimentary, and we conduct a few different sessions on occasion with individuals, and be happy to set up a discussion with you on those. We have an executive access program, which gets you a bit more on benchmarks and things like that. But majority of what how our revenue is generated, over 95%, is through consulting engagements, and that's where we have a vast level of experience across go-to-market models. So please keep us in mind as you have outside needs for consulting support anywhere tied into the go-to-market model, sales, marketing, and service functions. And then the last page we'll leave you with is the upcoming, current and upcoming research that's available. So we have an AI briefing that's available, some more depth on marketing and demand generation, how it's improving pipeline contribution in healthcare. We'll have a future go-to-market models as part of our Provider Insight series. We'll have a briefing on future MedTech go-to-market models that'll be available in August, as well as a new marketing trends and investment deck. And then we also have marketing summits as well as sales compensation symposiums, and then our executive forum is in November at the Breakers in Palm Beach. So please reach out to us if you have any interest in any of these, or having a separate conversation. Sean, I took your note down there that we'll certainly reach out to have a separate meeting there based on your chat. But feel free to reach out to myself or Taylor with any additional questions or information that we can provide. And then we look forward to seeing you all at MedTech in Toronto in October, AdvaMed's annual conference. And it should be a really good one in Toronto, and we'll be there. We'll be part of the presenters, and hope you can make it, and we'll see you there. All right.
Absolutely. Another wonderful presentation, Mike. Great work. I appreciate everyone's attendance today. And as you said, the MedTech conference in October will be a wonderful opportunity to reconnect and view more of their content and information. If you have any further questions, as you see, their emails are in their name titles. And once again, I want to say I appreciate you all. I hope you all take care today. All right. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Taylor. And everyone take care.
All right. Thanks, Monty.
No problem. All right. Bye-bye.